At first glance, this feels like a familiar fantasy. A genius. Unlimited money. Technology that obeys thought. Confidence that borders on arrogance. The kind of life that looks untouchable from the outside. But that's not the real story. The real story begins when certainty collapses. When a man who has never questioned his value suddenly becomes replaceable, disposable, trapped inside the results of his own success. This is a superhero film, but the experience it offers isn't empowerment. It's confrontation, a slow, uncomfortable realization that progress without responsibility doesn't just create weapons, it creates blind spots. The film is Iron Man, and what it gives you, if you stay with it, is an inspiration. It's a reckoning. We meet Tony Stark at the peak of control. He doesn't just build weapons. He defines them. His intelligence has become an industry. His charm acts as insulation, keeping consequences at a safe emotional distance. He doesn't see destruction. He sees solutions. That matters, because when intelligence becomes abstracted from impact, morality starts to feel optional. Tony lives inside momentum. Deals, demonstrations, applause. His identity is reinforced constantly by success. There's no pause long enough for doubt to form. And doubt, in his world, would be inefficient. Then the environment changes. The attack isn't just physical. It's symbolic. Tony's technology turns on him not because it malfunctions, but because it works exactly as designed. The weapons he created to control outcomes now define his own. This is where the story quietly fractures. Captured, injured, and stripped of his resources, Tony is forced into stillness. For the first time, he can't move forward through confidence alone. Survival becomes manual, immediate, intimate. And inside that confinement, something uncomfortable happens. Tony sees his legacy without branding. The people holding him don't speak in ideology. They speak in ownership. His work belongs to them now. Not because it was stolen, but because it was sold into a world where control is an illusion. This realization doesn't make him heroic. It makes him afraid. Fear, not guilt, is the catalyst here. Fear of death. Fear of irrelevance. Fear of being outpaced by his own creations. This detail changes how the transformation should be understood. Tony doesn't begin changing because he suddenly cares about humanity. He changes because his intelligence is no longer protecting him. Inside captivity, Tony meets someone who represents the opposite of his worldview. A man defined not by ambition, but by clarity. Where Tony builds to expand influence, this man builds to preserve life. Their collaboration isn't idealistic. It's pragmatic. They share a goal, survival. But the way they approach it exposes Tony's blind spot. Tony builds fast, improvises, pushes limits. He's always done this. But now, speed isn't a luxury. It's a liability. Every shortcut risks exposure. Every flaw has consequences. The first suit isn't a symbol of heroism. It's a prosthetic. Crude. Heavy. Temporary. It exists to escape, not to save. And that's important, because the origin of Iron Man isn't altruism. It's self-preservation. When Tony escapes, the victory feels incomplete. He's alive, but the world he returns to no longer aligns with the man who left it. He brings something back with him, not just technology. Awareness. And awareness is disruptive. Back home, Tony tries to re-enter his old rhythm, but the rhythm rejects him. His company continues producing weapons. His partners continue planning expansion. The machine doesn't stop because its creator had a moment of clarity. This is where the psychological tension deepens. Tony now understands the cost of his work, but he's embedded in a system that depends on him not understanding it. And instead of dismantling that system immediately, he hesitates. Not out of cowardice. Out of identity loss. Because if Tony stops being a weapons manufacturer, who is he? Intelligence that evolves faster than identity creates instability. Tony's response is isolation. he retreats into creation, not to innovate the world but to contain his guilt. He refines the suit, not as a weapon, but as control. Control over space, over damage, over outcomes. The suit becomes his attempt to reconcile two selves, the inventor and the survivor. But this is where the story quietly turns again, because control feels like responsibility, but it isn't the same thing. As Tony announces a shift away from weapons, the people around him react not with understanding, but with calculation. Power structures don't process morality. They process threat, and Tony, whether he realizes it or not, has become one. His closest ally watches carefully. His company's leadership adapts. The world begins planning around the possibility that Tony Stark is no longer predictable. Predictability is the currency of trust. Unpredictable intelligence scares people more than destructive force. As Tony continues refining his technology, the suit evolves faster than his ethical framework. Each upgrade solves a problem but also creates a new imbalance. He's no longer reacting, he's testing boundaries. This is one of the film's hidden insights. The suit doesn't make Tony a hero, it accelerates who he already is. His confidence returns. His humor resurfaces, but underneath, something has shifted. He's no longer performing for an audience. He's preparing for a future where he may have to stand alone, and standing alone requires justification. When Tony finally takes action outside the lab, it feels righteous, necessary. But notice how instinctive it is. He doesn't seek consensus. He doesn't ask permission. He intervenes. Because he can. Power, once acquired, always finds a reason to be used. This is what most viewers misunderstand. The film isn't celebrating intervention. It's questioning who gets to decide when intervention is justified. Tony believes his intelligence makes him the safest person to hold this power. And maybe he's right, but the story doesn't let that belief sit comfortably. Because while Tony is evolving, so is the threat. Not in opposition, but in imitation. And this is where the film plants its most unsettling idea. Technology doesn't care who deserves it. It only cares who can build it. By the end of part 1, Tony has taken his first steps towards something larger than himself. Not heroism, but responsibility. And even that word feels unstable. Because responsibility without restraint is just control with better intentions. Tony is no longer just a man. He's a variable, and the world is already adjusting around him. That's where this part ends. Not with triumph, but with the quiet understanding that intelligence, once unleashed, never belongs to its creator again.